All right, we are back for our second edition of Reeling Them In, the Osceola's recruiting report. And Fish, we've been seeing a lot of each other this week between Reeling Them In and tailgates and everything else. But hey, FSU, there's a you can be hot and then you can be in fuego, and FSU is in fuego hot, not only on the field but also on the recruiting trail, and got some great news this afternoon when just a few minutes ago when five-star wide receiver Hykeem Williams from Fort Lauderdale Stranahan High School committed to Florida State, which gives them 16 in a week where they've added two with the addition of Blake Nicholson earlier in the week, the linebacker from California. Fish, obviously, you're down in South Florida. You're very educated and aware of Hykeem, and just talk a little bit about what you think led to him choosing Florida State over Texas A&M and Pitt, obviously knowing that they still got to get to the finish line.
With most of these commitments, and you know this as well as anybody, is these come down to relationships. Hykeem feels very comfortable with this coaching staff. Norvell's done a very good job taking the lead with Coach Dugans. They've done a very good job recruiting Hykeem from the beginning, even when it looked like they had no shot at him at all. And it comes down to also they're doing well on the field. They have a product to sell. You've seen what they've had: three wide receivers in 3 different weeks lead the team in receiving and have great performances. So I think that's helped out as well.
Yeah, listen, on the field, obviously you've seen him in person a bunch, but on his highlight tape, listen, he's got everything you're looking for. 6'4", 205 pounds, will likely add more weight. When you look at him, and I know you've been to several NFL games, he's got that NFL type body. Certainly a very, and I know it's cliche at this point, we hear every coach talk about it, but not only does he have great size and great hands, but he also is a very physical player and blocks very hard. But you've seen him more than I have. Just tell us a little bit about what you think Florida State is getting on the field from Hykeem.
Yeah, I remember seeing Julio Jones at the FSU summer camp the year that he came. Physically, he looked like somebody that belonged on Sundays. I remember Julio going against Antonio Cromartie at the FSU camp, and he beat him for a touchdown. I'm like, wow, this kid is as good as everybody says. And Hykeem physically looks like Julio Jones did at coming out of high school, or an A.J. Brown who plays for the Eagles and played at Mississippi. Those guys are different. You know it, Pat. You've been around the game a long time. There's some guys that physically look different when they walk in that room, and Hykeem Williams is one of those. Like, you don't have to ask when you go to one of his games, who's Hykeem Williams? No, he stands out. He's that guy that looks bigger than everybody else on the football field. He looks like a man-child, and that's why he's such a special prospect. He's got all the physical tools, the size, the speed. He could take a 5-yard hitch and outrun smaller, faster DBs. All the physical traits are there. Now it's up to him to take those tools and live up to that potential. We've seen so many of these type of guys that have had the potential, but the last guy that looked like this coming out of South Florida was Andre Johnson. It's been a long time. You don't see these guys this size. Now, there's been great receivers that have come out of there, like Rashad Green types, the Kelvin Benjamins, but they don't look like this physically. Even Kelvin, as big as he still had to fill out coming out of high school. Hykeem looks like he could play on Sundays, not Saturdays.
Yeah, and to your point, he is rated as the 16th best prospect nationally by Rivals, 5th best player in the state of Florida, and 4th best wide receiver in the country. So the highest rated player Florida State has gotten, and certainly, as you mentioned, all those things stood out to me on tape. I looked at his huddle tape again today, and the first thing that you notice is just how he looks. He's just a different physical presence than most high school kids. But yes, we saw him up here in Tallahassee around the start of camp. And again, you didn't know he'd need to ask who he was, as several prospects were walking around at practice that day. But listen, Florida State is on fire. They are rated the 27th best class prior to this by Rivals. 27th ranked recruiting class for 2023. What does he add to this class? I mean, how good is this class with the addition of Hykeem at where it stands with 16 commitments? And obviously, it's not signing day yet, so a lot of road to go. But how do you sum up this class with the addition of Hykeem at the 16th commitment?
we've talked about this. You could get so far with good players. You could get to 7, 8, 9 wins. To break through, to get that 10 win, that 11 win, you want to compete for ACC titles. These are the guys you need to sign. If you hit on the second and third tier guys and they end up panning out, that's what brings you those championships, because you've hit on the 5-star kids, the high 4-star kids. But these are the guys that are difference makers. They change your program. You saw it with Dalvin Cook. How many times in a game did Dalvin Cook bail Florida State out in a game that they didn't look like they were going to win? This is the type of kid that late in a game that's close, that they're losing, he pops it off for 60 yards and you win that game. There's only so many of these guys, and that's why Hykeem is so important to their class. He raises the ceiling of the class. He's the first big-time playmaker under this staff that they will sign, not through the portal, because Johnny Wilson's proven to be one of those guys, and so is Jermaine Johnson. But this is the first high school kid that they will have landed as a commitment that's a difference maker. And that's huge, because you at least get 3 years out of this kid. It's not a 1-year rental.
Yeah, and another thing, Florida State has really hit home with receivers in this particular class. They've got Vandrevis Jacobs from Vero Beach already committed. Obviously, Darren Goldie Lawrence from Sanford. I don't think they signed a wide receiver out of high school. So, looks they've made some improvements there. And what does it say about how much Florida State has improved its recruiting in South Florida to go in and get a kid like that since Mike's been here? I know there were some concerns early on about their ability to recruit that into the state, and obviously they seem to have learned how to do it.
I think this from dealing with South Florida kids. You want to kind of cherry pick the guys you really want. You don't need to come down here. I tell people all the time, college coaches, you don't need to come down here and land 10 guys. You need to get 1 or 2 difference makers. And they've come down, they identified the guys they wanted. This is one of them. And I think that's what you have to do when you come and recruit South Florida. It's not quantity, it's quality. And if you could get quality, 2, 3 guys that are difference makers from down here, I think you've done your job as a staff. And they're doing that with this kid this year. There's maybe 1 or 2 other guys. I know Conrad Hussey's a kid they like out of St. Thomas that they may get on and recruit hard, that's committed to Penn State. But you don't need 20 of these kids. You need 1 or 2 difference makers that come in there that could change the game. And that's what this kid does. And it shows that they're recruiting smart now. That's how they should recruit. I give them a lot of credit for doing that.
Well, listen, I've always said that winning is the most attractive thing to a recruit. It's not uniforms or location or whether you're winning or not. Florida State is 3-0 and really had some. Johnny Wilson had a huge game. I have to think that helped as they were getting down to this commitment date. Listen, like we've talked about, early signing day is still over 2 months away, 2.5 months away, basically almost 3. How important does Florida State success on the field impact, that commitment being honored on National Signing Day, and how far, as a class, how important is it that Florida State continues to see success on the field?
The success on the field's huge. I mean, that's the one thing you're dealing with when you're recruiting against other schools and programs is if you're not winning, they can use that against you. Hey, listen, those guys aren't winning. They don't develop. All the excuses go out the window when you're 3-0. Nobody cares if you win by 1 or 30. At the end of the day, the recruits look at that W next to that name of that team that they're playing. So that's huge for them. And winning. I've had people, whether they're friends or colleagues in the business, well, what does Florida State have to do? I said, listen, you want to get rid of the noise, just win. It shuts people up. Nobody could say anything if you're winning. When you're losing, you have every excuse in the book. But if you're winning, and you've been in those recruiting rooms, it's when you're winning, you're recruiting against yourself at that point. Nobody else could say a darn word. You're going to go out there, do what you have to, and it changes everything in the whole recruiting process.
Well, right now, Florida State is winning everywhere, 3-0, looking to go 4-0 against Boston College on Saturday night. obviously has had a big week on the recruiting front with the commitment of Blake Nicholson from Manteca, California, the outside linebacker. And then, of course, just a few moments ago, Hykeem Williams from Miami, Florida, Stranahan High School, Fort Lauderdale, Stranahan, one of the most highly sought after wide receivers in the country, commits to Mike Norvell and his staff to give Mike and his staff 16 commitments towards 2023. And we will keep on rolling with reeling them in as we have new updates. But Fish, always appreciate the insight and expertise, particularly on Hykeem Williams today.
No doubt, no doubt. I don't know how many more of these we could do. We have a contract together that we're only supposed to be in the same location or on these things, like 2 or 3 times a week. So I think we've hit that limit.
Yeah, we are at our limit. We cannot spend any more time on Zoom together this week. People are going to start talking. All right.
They're going to think we like each other.
I know. If they listen to Osceola Tailgate, they still know that we disagree from time to time.
Exactly. Hey, West Virginia, we got that one right yesterday.
We did get that one right. We were all over it. Offense was just
1-0.
Virginia Tech. So I'll have to go back and remember all my other picks. But hey, Fish, I appreciate it, man.
Take it easy.